Welcome to day 18 of our challenge. Today we are going to implement the My Bookings list so that you can really see what flight or which flights you have booked. And along the way, you will also learn how you can transform data inside of a collection. So let's switch over to our project. Now open up the Angular project folder client app, move into source, app, My Bookings, and then open up My Bookings component HTML. So the markup, right? Here we got the template. Now again, go to the GitHub repository for day 18, check for My Bookings component HTML and paste in the value that you can find there. So this is the layout. You can see it's really simple, a bootstrap card that we got right here with a row, columns, and a lot of information, right? Amsterdam, here we got the departure, time, and all of this. So let's take a real quick look, save it, and start the application. And once we registered and we book a flight, you can see that we are now inside of the My Bookings list. And here we see we got some seats booked. All of this is fake data, right? And we got a cancel button. So this is the pure HTML template. Okay, so now let's go ahead and add a new controller to our ASP.NET Core project. So let me just close the Angular folder here, go into the controllers folder, right click and add a new controller. Simply go to API on the left side and then API controller empty. Hit add. Now we can enter a name and we call that booking. So booking controller.cs. Don't forget that suffix controller, right? Booking controller.cs. Hit enter or add. And now we take the route as we did before, but we completely remove the API slash. So for all of our other controllers, for example, flight controller, you can see we got route, and then we got the braces, and then controller, brackets, right? And we got the same here, API controller, route controller, and we can even put it here below of that so that it really looks like in the other controllers. Yeah, we will need that controller, the booking controller, to get the information about all the flights that the user has booked. So let's first of all go ahead and for our endpoints that we will create just in a second, we need to transfer some information, right? So we should now go ahead and create another read model, which is booking read model. So go into the read models folder, right click and add a new C# class and call it booking read model. Don't forget, read models are for transferring information between endpoints. So here we got the public class. Let's turn that into a record. Let's get rid of the brackets here and add a GUID for flight ID. This is the information that we need. Also airline, price, time, place, read model for arrival, time, place, read model for departure, int for number of booked seats, string passenger email. So as I said, this is really for the information in the end of which flights have I booked, right? And we will return that as a collection. So for example, as a list. And this is the single information that we need. So which flight was it? What's the airline, price, arrival, departure, number of booked seats. So all the information that was really inside of the HTML that we have just created, or that one that you have just copied, right? So let's save it. Now switch over to the booking controller that we have just created. First of all, let's start using flights.data and using flights.readModels. Now, first of all, let's grab our entities object, so the database context. Private, read-only, entities. And we will grab that from the dependency injection. So use the constructor, ctor, tap. Let's paste it in here, entities. And then we set this entities, so underscore, right, it's referenced here, equals to that one from the constructor. Great, now we got our database context. Now let's set up an endpoint. As I already said, it's over and over again, always the same stuff. Create a controller, create an endpoint, grab the database context. So everything that you have learned will now get repeated to get that new sort of functionality, right? To show the information about specific flights which the user has booked. So it will be for sure a public iAction result or action result of type IEnumerable booking read model, right? Read models for sending information. Let's call it list string email. Great. So now we need to make that really an endpoint. Right now it's a method. Let's go ahead and make it an endpoint. It's HTTP GET for sure because we're getting information and we are grabbing the information by an email. So I will explain it just in a second. Simply write down email in curly braces here. So this is the parameter for sure. And the thing is that we want to grab all the booked flights by email address of the user. So for my jl@dev.com, which flights did he book, right? And then return a list of it. Great. As always, we want to add some validation here, some data annotation attributes. So let's go ahead and do that. Produces response type of 500, right? Internal server error. Let's copy that over. Go ahead for 400, client side error. And let's go ahead for a 200. There we go. And we can adjust it a little bit. So type of booking read model 200. So this is for sure okay. Great. So this is exactly how we've done it in the other controllers too. Oh yeah, and we need to adjust the booking read model here to be IEnumerable because for sure we are returning a list or a collection. IEnumerable booking read model. There we go. So okay, now it's perfect. Okay. So before we start working on the real functional code of that method, we should go ahead and take a look really at more advanced queries, which you can use in Entity Framework to write more specific queries. So let's switch over to a short presentation about filtering. So we have used the select method earlier to transform items of a collection. The result would be another collection. The expression inside a select method receives a typical item of the input collection and transforms it into a typical item of the output collection. The expression we pass to the select method is like a formula that tells the select method how to transform each item. Now, imagine a collection in which each item is a collection by itself. Let's call it a nested collection. How to transform a nested collection? If we pass the collection to the select method, the expression's input would be the internal collection. Let's pass the internal collection to the select method and transform the items of the internal collection. So the result would be a transformed nested collection. If we pass the collection to the select method, the expression's input would be of the type of the internal collection. Keep in mind that the output of a select method is always a collection. Let's decide about its items. Let's pass the internal collection to the select method and transform the items of the internal collection. So the result would be a transformed nested collection. Let's replace the external select with the select many method. Select many returns a different result. Transforming a nested collection using the select many method not only transforms the collection, but also unpacks each internal collection. In other words, it flattens the two-level collection and turns it into a one-level collection. Now that we understand what select many method does, let's transform the bookings. We have a collection of flight entities in the application. Each flight has a list of bookings internally. And we want to transform the internal bookings of all flights into a flat collection of booking read models. You know all you need to do such transformations. So let's do it now. Alright, so let's continue where we have stopped. Let's write the functional code for this list action that we got right here. And what we want to have for sure is we want to grab the specific bookings of a user by a given email address here. And since we want to have it in booking read model, we for sure, as we have seen in the presentation, need to transform the elements in the collection to be part of booking read model. So let's see how it's done in action, and it's not that complicated once we really have seen this in practice. So let's start by creating a variable. Let's call it bookings, and it will be of type IEnumerable bookings read model later on. So you can for sure go ahead and use that type too, but I will keep it as var. Go into the entities, which is our database context. So let's say go into the database, into the flights table that we have. And first of all, turn all of them into an array. Now, if you would use an SQL provider, you would not have to do it. You could simply say select many automatically. But since we're using the in-memory provider right now, we have to do that, unfortunately. Doesn't really matter since it doesn't change, well, in the end, how we write the query. But for sure, when we switch to SQL later on, you could potentially get rid of that to array because it's an additional call that could take a little bit longer once the database really gets populated with a lot of flights and not faking mock data, right? So now we take all the flights and turn them into an array. So afterwards, notice that I don't use a semicolon, instead I use a dot, right? So we take that array and now we call the select many method. And we call that F for flight, and the flight goes to flight.bookings. So remember that each flight that we had has a list of bookings, right? So which bookings are existing for a specific flight. So inside of that select many now, right? So there where we have all the bookings now, we go ahead. So keep in mind that I'm still inside of the parentheses, bookings, there we go. And now from that bookings, we go ahead, I jump into the next line, dot where I select those bookings where the booking goes to booking dot email, passenger email, right? Where the booking of, where the email of that booking is equals to the email we got here in the parameter. Great. So now we have the specific bookings of a flight filtered by the passenger email already. This is all we have to do. And now we have to transform it into a booking read model. So we already filtered, right? So we grabbed all the bookings of a specific flight by an email address. That's the most important point. And now we transform it into a booking read model because as you can see, we got bookings here, right? And this is of type domain entity booking, but we want to have it in booking read model because we are returning read models from the endpoints. So let's go ahead, select the booking again, where the booking goes to new booking read model. So we take that booking, right, from here, from the select many, we have filtered, right? We take that booking and turn it into a new booking read model. And the only thing we have to do now is we need to fill in the values from that record. So that new booking read model record. And you can see if you hold the cursor above it, here you got the values. So let's do that. For the ID, we take the f.id flight ID, and the f is coming from that expression right here, right? From the select many, because select and where are inside of that select many. There are just some parentheses missing here. You can just add them. You can see it, right? So select and where are inside of select many. This is why we can use that f, which is the flight. So create a new booking read model and take the flight ID. Also take the flight.airline. Also take the flight.price.toString, since we have converted, or we want to have it as a string, so we need to convert it. Afterwards we got new time place read model flight.arrival.place. So this is read model type, time place read model again. Sorry, we are not done. Time place read model arrival place and flight.arrival.time. Arrival.time. There we go. So flight arrival time, and here flight.departure.place and flight.departure.time. Okay, coding and speaking all at once, right? So sometimes it gets a little bit confusing. There we go. Now afterwards, pay attention. We now don't take flight dot remaining number of seats. That doesn't make sense, right? We go ahead and take them from the booking. So booking dot number of seats, because this is the information about how many seats the user has booked and not how many seats, well, are still available on the flight. So the remaining number of seats doesn't make sense here because we want to know, hey, how many seats do you have booked? And this is where we take the booking and take the number of seats. Afterwards, only pass in the email. So everything that we have created in the booking read model earlier today is now filled out, right? All of the information here. Awesome. Great. Now we have that. Just add a semicolon here and we are done. So we take all the flights, put them into an array, and filter now. We take all of the bookings from that flight and grab all of them which have the email which we got provided in the parameter. Then we take them again and turn every element inside of that collection into a booking read model. And afterwards, var bookings here will be of type IEnumerable booking read model, right? And this is exactly matching the structure right here. So we can simply go ahead and return OK and pass in bookings. This is all we have to do. And if we don't have any bookings, it will be null. So in just an empty collection or just an empty IEnumerable, that's totally fine. So let's save it and we're completely done. So at the first sight, that may seem really complicated, but just take a look and go through it because all the method names are exactly telling you what's going on. I guess the hardest one to really understand is the select one. So in the end, when we have all the bookings of that person, we take each of them and convert each booking into a new booking read model. And this will result in the fact that this collection in the end will be type of booking read model. Great. So, okay, now that that's set, and if you really understand that, you have learned a lot of Entity Framework stuff already. Well, in the end, it has really not to do so much with Entity Framework, but you will use a lot of this for Entity Framework. Well, because these are simple expressions. And what makes them complex here is that they just, well, get called after each other. So you don't call one and then you make a new call. No, you just go ahead and filter it and go on and where and select and all of this, right? So you really have a queue of all of these expressions. Great, now let's try that out. So go ahead and start your application in debugging mode to really force Swagger to update. Now let's first of all grab a flight. So get into the flight endpoint, hit try it out, and you could get the list of all the flight information. Let's take the very first one and let's copy that ID here, copy it. Now I will just close it and now we will book a flight. So open up flight and then post, right? So create and then try it out. Let's paste in the ID here. Let me write down an email address, jl@dev.com, and then number of seats. Well, I want to book 2 seats. Let's hit execute and that should lead us to a 200 run response. That's fine. So success, right? So that's created. It worked. That's great. And now let's go ahead, since we now have booked the flight, go to our new booking endpoint here into get. Now we can grab all the booked flights for jl@dev.com, right? That's the email address that I've used for booking. Let's hit execute. And you can see that we have an array here. And inside of that array, we have one item with all the information, right? And it's of our custom data type. So we got number of booked seats 2, passenger email, jl@dev. We got departure, arrival, price as string, airline, flight, and so on. So that's very nice. So by repeating what you have already discovered, we have now added an endpoint to grab all the booked flights of a specific user. Now let's implement that into our Angular project. All right, so now let's update our client-side API, so make sure the application is running. You can press Ctrl F5 or start it in debugger mode. Let's hit Ctrl F5. And while the application is loading in the background, go to the client app folder, right click, open in terminal. Now, as always, we update our client API by using the command npx -ng openapi -gen. So let's do that. Write down npx ng -open API -gen, hit enter. And as you can see, we now have some new files, right? We got new service booking.service. Awesome. So now let's an array field of type booking read model to the my bookings component. So open up the client app folder, source, and then let's go to my bookings, right? That's the one that we have just created. Then go to my bookings component.ts, right? And here inside of our my bookings component class, let's go first of all, create an import statement. Import, and we create or we import the booking read model from, there we go, API/models. And now above the constructor, we can create a field, booking, or bookings of type booking read model. And you will see that he is complaining now. So let's hold the cursor above it and you can see the property bookings has now initialized and is not definitely assigned in the constructor. So let's go ahead and add an exclamation mark, which is telling the compiler that this field cannot be null or undefined. And now he will not complain anymore. Now let's grab the booking service that we have just created. So let's import booking service from API/models. services slash booking.service. Now, as always, take it from the dependency injection inside of the constructor, private booking service. There we go. Now we can use it inside here. And now inside of ng on init, we go ahead and call this booking service. The list booking, right? This is our endpoint, and we subscribe to it. Subscribe, there we go. And we set the result will be set to this booking service equals to result. So bookings equals to the result. Great. So once we receive the value, we will set the bookings right here. Now you can see that he is for sure complaining because he wants to have an email. So we get that email. Go ahead and import our auth service, right? You will remember it from our API, from our auth, there we go, auth.service. And using that auth service, we can for sure grab our email. So go into the constructor. Let's first of all get it here, private auth service of type auth service. There we go. And now in list bookings, go ahead and create a new object. Set the email to be this.authService.current user, check if it's null, and if not, take the email, and if it's null, just go ahead, double question marks, correct, it's fine, email, and if not, take an empty string. Okay, so let me zoom out just for a second so that you can see the whole line of code. We got this booking service, call list bookings, and we passed in an object, and the email value is from the all service the current user, check if it's null, and if it's not null, take the email, and in every other case, take an empty string. Great, so that call is now complete. Let's save it here. And for sure, now when we have that bookings, we need to bind it into our template. So go ahead and open my bookings component HTML. Right, and here inside of that second div where we have that card, and here you can see that div where we have that card, right above this, create a div, another one, right? So inside here we will write a loop. So let's do this. Asterisk ng for let booking of bookings. Bookings the field, right? And here in the first div with that card, right, let's write down loop, so asterisk ng4 equals to let booking of bookings. So we iterate through our bookings field, and now we can simply replace the values. So instead of Lufthansa right here, go ahead and bind it to our booking.airline. Great, so let me copy that. In the next line of code, you can see 3 booked seats, right? So instead of 3, paste in here booking dot number of booked seats. Scroll a little bit down until you get to Amsterdam here. Replace it with booking dot departure. Check if it's null, take the place. For date, booking departure, check if it's null, take the time, and add a pipe to it, pipe it to date. Now let me copy that one here and pipe it here again. Booking departure time, this time to date, but to short time. As I said, it's repeating the same stuff over and over again, right? Now we will copy that. And first of all, here we got the price. So we're gonna paste it in and set it to booking.price. And now let's take care about our arrival. Belgrade, there you go, departure. Gonna set that to arrival. Place. We got date here, so arrival, time, pipe it to date, copy it again, and here pipe it to short time again. Great. So now we have that completed. So we get our short time here for arrival, arrival date, arrival place, price, departure time as date, and departure place, booking number of seats, and booking airline. That should be everything. So let's save it so far. And there are just two smaller things left to do. First of all, go to my bookings component TS. Let's write a method here, private handle error type of any. There we go. So we can simply log some information, console.log response error, right? We want to have all the information, status, and then let's add the error.status. Great. We can copy that over 2 times. The last one is just console logging the whole error. We can do it like this, status error, there we go. And then we get response error, status, text, there we go, error status, text. Awesome. Okay, now in the subscribe here, as a second parameter, go ahead, call this .handle error. That's all we have to do. So that's the first part. And the second part is that we should add the My Booking menu to the navigation bar so that we can really visit that page, and not only after getting redirected when we book something. So go ahead and open up the nav menu component. It's inside source, inside app, then open up nav menu. You got that right here. And we want to go to the HTML file. So let's scroll a little bit down till you can find home right here. So you get that A tag, copy it over. Or we want to take not the A tag, we want to take the whole list item element. Let's do this. Let's remove that router link active and router link active options. We can completely get rid of it so that we still have or only have our list item here. And instead of for sure redirecting us to home, we want to go to my booking, and here we have my bookings. There we go. That looks nice. So now we have a nav menu which it's getting redirecting, or which will redirect us. So let's save and take a look at the application. Great. So here you can see my bookings. When I click on that, I get to that page and I can go to home page. So let's search, and we take that flight here again. Let me just register. jl@dev.com, Janik, there we go, and then mail, and let's search for a flight again now that we have registered, and let's book 2 of them. So click book, you can see my bookings. Now let me go to home again, and let me go to my bookings again, and you can see that we have now the information about which bookings I have, right? So let me just book another flight. Let me book the second one here. Let me book 5 seats. Book that. You can see my bookings list, it starts growing, right? So now I have the information about which flights I have booked. I mean, later on when you build your own applications and own use cases, right? You will need all of that information to keep track of some things and all of that. So you can adjust everything to really match it to your specific own use case. Okay, so when you now press Ctrl F5, go to my bookings again, or press it directly on my bookings, you can see that your information is gone, right? So our application doesn't signify that the user is not logged in right now. So in the next video, we will keep track of that. So when you want to see my bookings and you are not logged in, you will have to real quick sign in again. Okay, move to my bookings component.ts. There we go. Now, as I said, when you call that ng on init, booking service will list the bookings. But if you're not logged in, so we have no email, we will have no information, right? So right now, if we press Ctrl F5, we will automatically get logged out because the cache is cleared and all of this. So because we don't have a persistent user login right now, we need to go ahead and redirect the user to, well, log in again once we notice that he isn't logged in. Let's go ahead and do that for this specific scenario. So let's import the router. Import router. Just takes a second to implement it. Add Angular/router. Now take the router and the constructor. Private router type router. Okay. Just set that here. That's looking good. Okay. In the ng on init, let's say if not, right? So this auth service dot current user dot email. So if we don't have an email address, right? Notice that exclamation mark. And we want to go ahead and redirect the user. So this router.navigate to our login page, which is /register passenger. Cool. So as I said, this only takes place when you click on My Bookings to see all of your bookings and you're not even logged in, right? So let's go ahead and try that out. Open the application, click on My Bookings. You can see, okay, it redirects me to log in. So he notices, okay, I'm not logged in, jl@dev.com. You can see we automatically got logged in, right? Because we implemented it before. Click on My Bookings again, and you can see the information about the bookings, right? And this is still persisting because since the last video, I haven't shut down the application completely. So the in-memory information is still persisting because we got hot reload and I didn't completely shut down the service. Great. So now we got the information here. And when I press Control F5 or simply F5, you see, okay, I'm logged out again. But once I just write everything down here, jl@dev.com, and just blur that out, I will get logged in again. Click on My Bookings. We got all of the information back again. Cool. Very nice. So now we have a completely new functionality where you can keep track of all your bookings. All right, so let's continue because we're not completely done with that My Bookings page. So now we got all the information, but can you see that yellow or orange button here, which is saying cancel? Well, cancel booking is a business operation that changes the state of the entity. Here we got our flight entity. You can see that make booking call here, right? So let's skip HTTP, REST API, and the way we receive user requests. Let's focus on the pure domain-specific logical flow behind the cancel booking operation. And it's pretty similar to what we have already developed so far with that make booking call. So to cancel a booking, we should find the booking that the user requests, remove it from the booking list, and release the booked seats. So this operation needs to be done in the business domain, whether the passenger uses any software or not, right? Because that could also happen in the real world at the real airport. You can go there and just cancel a flight. Now let's implement the cancel booking logic. Here inside the flight entity, let's go ahead and add cancel booking. Again, we will create an arrow object or an arrow class later on. So let's set it to object, make it nullable, cancel booking, string, passenger email, and byte number of seats, right? So we want to cancel a specific flight. We're gonna grab it by the passenger email and we want to remove a specific number of seats or release it in the end. Let's go ahead and first of all find the booking. So var booking equals to bookings dot first or default booking goes to number of seats equals to b dot number of seats, and let me just bring that into the next line of code, and passenger email dot to lower equals to b dot passenger email dot to lower, right? So we want to make sure that it's not case sensitive. Now we got that booking. We can move on and simply remove it. So bookings dot remove the booking. So we simply take the bookings from the flight, grab the one we are searching for by the passenger email and number of seats, and then we move it from the bookings list. For sure, we have to take care about the remaining number of seats. So let's add, not remove, right? Add the booking dot number of seats because we're deleting the booking, so the seats will be free again. For sure, it's possible that we enter some wrong information. So passenger email, which has no booking, for example. So we should take care about an error. Let's go ahead again to our domain errors right here, right click on it and simply add a new C# class. Let's call it not found error. Switch back to our flight entity. And here, after trying to find it, to find the booking, if booking equals to null, we want to go ahead and return a new not found error. There we go. So an instance of the class that we have just created. Great, so we're nearly done here. Simply return null. In either case, we got, well, no value, everything worked fine, or we got an error object. Now let's move to the booking controller and implement that cancel booking. So open up controllers, go to booking controller. Let's start using our DTOs and errors here. So using flights.dto and using it's flights.domain.error. There we go, errors. Great. Now let's scroll down and let's create a completely new endpoint. You get list. There you go. Let's create it. Public I action result. Let's call it cancel. Takes the book DTO, right? Endpoints take data transfer objects. Don't forget that. Never forget that. First of all, before we write the code, let's add the correct attributes. So first of all, this is HTTP delete because we are deleting something, right? So this is the first time that we now don't use get or post. Instead, we use delete because we want to remove something. Now we got a lot of produces here. So produces response type. So first of all, we got the status code. Codes, there we go. Status code 204, no content. This happens after you delete something, then you send it 204 and say, hey, okay, I deleted it. There's no content anymore. So this is like success. And we got produces response type of 500, internal server error, produces response type of status codes .400, which is bad request. You can for sure also use simply 400 if you like, or want to write it down, just up to you. We got 404, which is not found for sure. There you go, status code 404, not found. So I did not found a passenger, flight, or whatever object you're searching for. That's all we have to add when it comes to attributes. So now let's write down the code here. So first of all, let's find the flight. Flight equals to entities dot flights dot find DTO dot flight ID. Let me see entities here. Yep, it has an underscore, for sure it has. So entities flights find. There we go. Now let's check if we have an error. Equals to flight, check if it's null. Let's call cancel booking. DTO.passenger email and DTO.number of seats. So check if we have an error. If error is not null, or is null, let's do it that way. So if error is null, we're gonna have a success, right? So go to entities, save the changes because we have modified the database, and let's return no content, which is, as I said, 204, which is a success call for I have deleted something and there is no content anymore. And if we have an error is not found error, let's return not found, which is 404 again. And we can also go ahead and throw new exception in every other case. So let's throw new exception, and we can print out or log the information. So let's go ahead and do that. We're gonna say the error of type error.get type, whatever error we have, .name occurred while canceling the booking made by, we can also enter the user information DTO.passenger email. There we go. All right, so that's a pretty long one, right? So we got throw new exception, and we got some interpolation here, and add error get type name and the information about the passenger. If you want to see that in detail, go ahead and check out the commit in day 18, right, in the GitHub repository. So what's happening here, we're calling that cancel endpoint on the controller, and we have that book DTO, and inside there we got the flight ID. So we take the flight and call cancel booking on it. And if we have no error, we're going to save the changes that we made to the database. And in every other case, well, we throw a not found or an exception, right? And in every other case, we return a not found or throw an exception if something else goes wrong. Cool. Okay. So again, this is everything. So again, this is just repeating the stuff you've already learned. So you have not learned any new things when it comes to this, right? But in many real-world scenarios, you really want to have that deletion and showing a list of information. So this is why we decided to add it, even though you really don't learn anything new, but it makes the application feel more complete. And well, it gives you a nice idea of what you can really build using that stack. Okay, so this is it for the ASP.NET Core side. Now let's switch over to the Angular side. All right, so cancel booking from the API side is done. Let me just quick close all of this. Now let's head to Angular project and open up our folder here, client app source, and move into my bookings component and open up the bookings component HTML. So here we got all of the information, right? So the list of all the booked flights inside of a loop. When you scroll down, you can see that we have a button here, right? And that button has no functionality yet. So let's real quick add an event here, just a click event, and we're gonna bind it to a method which we will create, and we'll pass in the booking. So we will gonna create that cancel method here. And the booking, you can see that reference for sure here too. So this is coming from the loop here, let booking of bookings. Great. So now move to the booking component.typescript and scroll a little bit down. And here under handle error or buffer handle error, it's up to you. Let's add cancel method, and it's taking a booking of type booking read model. Great. So now this is the method which is attached to the button. Great, now make sure that our application is running, and then again run npx ng open api -gen. Let's hit enter, and you can see that it again wrote some information for our booking cancel endpoint. Okay, so scroll to the very top, and here where we get our booking RM, our booking read model, we also want to grab our book DTO. And that's all we need to do here. Let's scroll down again. And here we get the book read model. Let's create a const DTO, which is a book DTO. Let's go ahead and, set the value to be a new object. There we go. Set the flight ID to be booking.flightID, right? So we got that from here. Now we have number of seats equals to booking.number of seats, passenger email, booking.passenger email. There we go. So now we have our book DTO, and we can call this booking service.cancel booking, booking service.cancel. Let me see. Yeah, all right, I see he hasn't really updated everything, so let me just get rid of this again. Let me start the application in debugger mode to really force Swagger to update everything, just in case it didn't due to hot reload. Great, so now it's starting and it's definitely updated. So let me head over. Got that here, that looks great. So on the right side, let me switch to Solution Explorer, right click, Client App, Open in Terminal. And let me simply run that command again. So npx ng open api -gen. Now let's see if he's writing this stuff. Yep, there we go. Now he wrote the booking service.ts. All right, cool. So let me shut that down here. And we should now be able to grab this .booking service.cancel booking. There we go. So it wasn't updated entirely. Now inside here we pass in an object and the body is set to DTO. So just remember the other side, instead of our ASP.NET Core controller, we got cancel as a method, and it's taken in a book DTO, right? So this is why we here have to create a book DTO and pass it into the call in the end. So let's subscribe to it, and let's create a new arrow function here. Say this dot handle error, there we go. Okay, now everything is referenced fine. So let's go ahead and run our application and try that out. Great, so let me register here, let me search for flight, let me book a flight. I want to book 2 seats. Let me book that, and here on my bookings list I now got the information about the 2 booked seats, and they are for sure now displaying also the correct information. So let me cancel that. You can see that we got some errors here, so let me close that. Now let me go to home and to my bookings again, and you can see that it's not appearing anymore even though we are logged in. So the flight got cancelled, but the list got not immediately updated, but once we get back to my bookings, it's gone. In our component.ts, here where we have that empty void, right? We want to replace that now and add this dot bookings equals to this dot bookings dot filter. And now let me bring that into the next line of code to make it easier to read. So this bookings, and let me add that comma there, just like this. Okay. Bookings, we filter that by B goes to, so booking goes to and booking. There we go. Great. So after clicking on the cancel button here, we call cancel booking, and on subscribe, we really filter the bookings to remove that one element, or however to grab all elements, but not that booking, right? So that we actually, since we have it in a two-way data binding, that the bookings field that we have right here gets filtered. So the old booking that you want to cancel gets removed from the element so that it's really updated. Great. Let's go ahead and try that again. Here we got the flight. So let me just quick log in. There we go. Let me search a flight. Let me book that one here. Let me book 5 seats. Book, right? We got that in bookings list, and now when I click on cancel, it should automatically update because of two-way data binding. That looks great. Okay, cool. So on home, when we take a look here, we got the flight. Let me book again. Let me book 5 of them. 5 books, 5 seats booked. Now you can see we got still 120 remaining, so that worked. And my bookings, I got the information. I can for sure now remove it. Great. So let me go back again. You can now see 125 again. So that worked. Cool. Now you can also cancel your bookings. Okay, now let's add the last thing for today, and that's really done very quick because today you have really developed a lot of stuff, right? But however, we added 2 complete new functionalities, listing all your booked flights and canceling your flights. So this is really a use case that you want to have in a lot of applications that you will build over your lifetime. Now let's go ahead into our nav menu component because I want to add a functionality, nav menu component.html here. We're gonna add just a simple link which allows us to switch the passenger. For example, a use case where you log in as a passenger and you book something, and then maybe someone else wants to switch, right? Because right now there is no way to log out or whatever. I mean, even though you can simply just refresh the page or start the application again, we should deliver a way for the user to simply switch for another passenger. So I just copied the list item here, and then we go to the router link and switch to register passenger. And this will bring up the form for login. Let's call it switch passenger. And that's all we have to do. Great, switch passenger. Yep, we can also add a nice icon. Let's just do that. So in the A tag, right here, after switch passenger, we write down icon, class equals to far user circle. There we go. That's all we have to do. It adds a nice icon to the nav menu. So save and take a look. Great. In the top right corner, you can see that switch passenger, right? Let me click on that. You can see it, or let me go to home when I click on switch passenger. Now you can see it. Let me log in jl@dev.com. And you can see I'm logged in. Let me search, or let me go to my bookings. Yeah, we have no flight, so let me book one. Let me take that Deutsch BA here, and I take 5 booking, right? Great. Now let me switch a passenger. Let me say chit@dev.com. Dev.com. There you go. You can also say Yannick, no problem. It's depending on the email address, right? So let me hit login. Let me go to my bookings. You can see it's empty. Let me search for flight. This time I don't take the same one. I take British Airways and take like 2 seats, right? And let me book another one. Let me book BB, that one here, 5-2, so we got that. Awesome. And when I now switch back again, so when I go to my bookings, I got that. Let me switch to passenger again, jl@dev. And now when I blur it, I get logged in. And in my bookings, you can see well, all the bookings that I just referenced for that email address. When I switch again back to tude@dev.com and I blur it, we'll get logged in, and in my bookings I can find my bookings here. So you can see all of the stuff coming together, right? So it's really a use case that we have thought a lot to teach you as much as possible and as many things and without a lot of repetition. But however, for displaying and canceling flights, we needed to do a lot of repetition, or we just repeated what you have learned so far, creating endpoints and having some simple data bindings. So not a lot of new stuff today, but a lot of new functionality. So that was a very productive day, and I'm happy to see you again tomorrow.